Good morning, everyone, or evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Sunday service. Befriend your weariness. If you can see and hear me and somebody could let me know that'd be awesome. Oh, hi, Danny and Gina. Welcome. If you're here, and hi, Sarah and San Diego and Yvonne and Sharon and Radha. Samar. Welcome, everyone. Sweet to be with you. Ashley. Francesca, Gina, Sandra in New York, Madeira, Christine. Here we are. We made it this far. Gretchen. So we'll just take Noelle's here. We'll just take a few minutes to let everyone gather and arrive. Our, this is the second in a series of 3. Hi, Alice. This is the second in this series of 3 Sunday services. Hi, Gina. The first one was The Hidden Sacred. Hi, Lloyd and Deborah with friends at the Relax Mansion. Good morning. This is the second in a series of 3 Sunday services, kind of drawn from my tradition, which I guess I would call the deep feminine tradition, also drawn from the teachings of her mystery school. So the first one was The Hidden Sacred. Today, the topic is Befriend Your Weariness. So it kind of moves from, continues to move into a deeper understanding of the hidden sacred and how it emerges and how it's cultivated. In general, even coming to Sunday service, this is what we're doing. We're tending to our hidden sacred. We're turning with reverence towards that which lives in us that we could never fully name, but that we must have a devotional and very private, very real and living relationship to and intimacy with in order to, usually in order to, for a lot of things to happen, right? Especially as we're navigating all that is disorienting right now and all that is in transformation in the outer world, in the many realms in which we cannot control. Hi, Kimberly, welcome. The third next Sunday service will be the deep feminine, holy, untamed wisdom. And that will kind of follow this thread. And all of them are, all of these are these are moments to be together and be in our own devotional worship together, touch something in the hidden sacred together and find that meeting place, fill from the deeper well. And this is also an opportunity for you, if you've been drawn at all to her mystery school, to get a sense of what the teachings are like, what I'm like, all that. Hey, Holly, good morning. So the arc of our service, we'll start with prayer, just gather in. Then I'm going to be reading from her mystery school and then discussing, kind of exploring into that reading. Then we'll have time to be in a practice together and really cultivate something together, and then bear witness with each other what has arisen in that practice, in ourselves, as we've gathered around this teaching today. And then we'll close again with a prayer. Service lasts about an hour, sometimes a little longer. So take a moment before we even turn our hearts towards prayer and just notice how you might bring yourself a little more present. Maybe softening back, sinking down, locating yourself anchored in the center of this present moment. Maybe closing your eyes for a moment, letting your felt sense open beyond what you can see. Actually, yes, if it's safe, do close your eyes. Just have a moment to gather yourself home. to turn your deep listening within without any need to change what you find. So you're feeling, you're opening to what you are in this moment. Meeting whatever's moving through, what sensations, feelings, whatever's there, without any need to change it. Noticing your breath. Noticing, opening to any sacred need that's present in you, in your heart this morning. Sacred need, what are you coming to this time together, this deep well, to drink? Do you need nourishment? Do you need the pure waters? Do you need to remember what you are? Do you need comfort? You need to be fortified. What's the living prayer inside of you this morning? And for now, we'll say that your living prayer comes from your sacred need, not from your mind or your history, but from your sacred need in this moment, the intimacy that you bring to the divine, the intimacy that you bring to creation. Softening through your body, softening your brow. Letting a gentle, pure rain from above wash over you, absorb into you. Calling your own energy home like water. Knowing that by natural law, it responds to your calling, your own essential energy. Your soul responds to your calling. Call yourself home. Your energy like water, finding the lowest place, filling in the secret places. Just filling here for a moment. Mm. Divine protectress, shepherding presence, You who lives inside of us and who gathers around us through all things. We know you when we feel you. We recognize you when we see you. When we find you, we proclaim you. And we know that you're with us. In any way that we can actually know you, you come to us, you meet us. Because to companion us on this journey is your covenant with us. To have brought us into life. To walk with us through life. To receive us when we offer our life up at its end. Companion, friend, beloved, we gather in your name, more importantly, in your presence. To recognize soul in each other, to recognize honor and reverence together, to listen deeply, to receive you, to become ever more willing, cultivated instruments of you. Thank you for bringing us together this morning. Thank you for all things. Blessed be. Good morning, and I see some more of you have joined. I won't read all of them right now, but welcome everyone. So today, the theme of the service is Befriend Your Weariness. And we're going to be reading from and working with teaching from the Queen's Command, which is the advanced teachings, the second year teachings of her mystery school. And they come from, in Queen's Command, well, in these teachings, we're working in the realm of Dark Mother. We're working in the realm of the hidden sacred, that which shelters, that which always remains at least a little bit hidden, but then loves to be revealed, right? Is the revelation into life. So I'm going to read from some of the teachings and just discuss them with you. We're going to explore them together and then be in practice together. So, and I'll just trust you all to handle the pronouns. So there's a lot of her in this, given that it's her mystery school, but I believe in you. And I think we all know that what we touch when it's real is beyond all words. So befriend your weariness when she comes. Follow her to the deep well, to the good place. So befriend your weariness when she comes. Follow her to the deep well, to the good place. So what we're forging together today in our service is an alliance with weariness, which could be said to be an alliance with the yin field, an alliance with the reservoir that lies at the root of all of us, right? But especially as we're walking through all the things we're walking through collectively and otherwise and personally, all over the place, weariness will come. Sometimes it will remain. And what happens for a lot of us, because we don't have sacred context around weariness, around the yin field, around the shelter and the release and the surrender that's there is we fight weariness, we fight heaviness, we fight the consolidation, right? The fallow. And we lose something, we lose a lot of things in that by not forging an alliance with weariness, right? With that call towards a deep release when it comes. If we're fighting it, if we're pushing ourselves to lift up again and again based on some portrait of what we think is supposed to be happening, then we are missing an invitation into the hidden sacred. And we are often then creating a life, creating even relationships, creating anything that we're creating from that place. We're creating it without reservoir, right? So there's a lot here in befriending your weariness. And what I want to invite first off is that we all be willing to, I don't know what your relationship is with weariness, but that there be a willingness to be brave in the face of weariness, to understand that there is something often annihilating about weariness. It takes us to the hidden place. It takes us to a deeper well and deeper reservoir from which resurrection happens, from which what is real, what's true life will arise. It's part of the cycles of things. It's a trustworthy natural cycle, the cycle of fruition into the fallow on the daily, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout your life, right? Throughout cultures, fruition and fallow. This is a natural law and a natural cycle that's trustworthy. So today we are inviting ourselves to, in whatever way is true for each one of you, to come into a deeper alignment and a resting into that cycle rather than a resistance of it, a resistance to it. There are a few things, within that tiny little teaching, befriend your weariness, follow her to the deep well, to the good place, right? It's inviting an alliance. It's inviting an inner alliance. It's inviting a resurrection and a refilling in the yin field. It's inviting a deepening into resource when it's needed, when it's called for. It's inviting a trust in life, even when life looks fallow and that's not what you thought was going to be happening or what you thought you might have to give in any given moment. It's also saying that weariness, heaviness, the kind of like, I don't have anything to give here. I don't know. That movement of like into the deep inward is often a heaviness, often, I don't have anything to rise up into this authentically right now. That then is actually, that is the pathway into the deeper well, right? To a really good place, to a place where the good arises again and again, eternally a spring, right? So there's something about weariness. If you find it, either, maybe sometimes you're completely exhausted, maybe you have to find it inside of yourself, but if you can find that in yourself and follow it, it will take you to a deeply good place. And the nature of weariness is to make it so that you are unable to do anything other than to surrender. And in that, you become absorptive. And in that, you become receptive and open to what life actually wants to bring. Because you've been made a little helpless, which we don't like often, or maybe you've been brought fully into the unknown, whatever that is. So there are a couple of ways I wanted to move through 3 points around that, 3 deepening points around that, looking towards depletion, looking towards overexposure, and then looking towards what is that place of resurrection? What does that mean to follow weariness to a place where you actually resurrect in a moment, right? Where you refill, and all of a sudden you're back on the pulse of life, and it was weariness that brought you there not necessarily a sense of vibrancy and excitement and that part of the fruition of life. Significant not only personally, but because there is a lot in our culture, a lot in our world that is beyond weary. It is empty to the point of collapse. And that's what we're living through. So for us to, on a very personal level, repair our alliance with that movement, the movement towards the fallow, is something that is enormously fortifying for how we're holding our community and our world while it moves. Many parts of it move towards the fallow, right? Putting itself to rest, disintegrating. So let's see. Looking towards depletion. So here's another bit from that teaching. When you notice excess, static, dispersion, empty consumption, look towards the depletion, the deficit, the overexposure. Look to fill what has become empty in order to empty of all that does not serve. Choose to warm yourself by the fires of your longing, rather than to smother them with preoccupation. So this is a Taoist understanding, ultimately, which is that oftentimes when you find yourself in excess, so weariness, sometimes it looks like you're just exhausted, or maybe you feel depressed, whatever it is, right? And there's an alliance to be had with that state, that presentation of weariness in your being. But also weariness presents as excess. Excess comes from deep depletion, right? So one way to consistently come to an alliance with weariness and how she wants to serve you, how that wants to actually serve you, anchor you, keep you close to the real, right? Is that when you notice that you're in excess, too much media, too much action, too much talking, too much thinking, too much whatever it is, too much scrolling through Facebook, like an excess of anything, even an excess of the good. Too much good going on, and now you're not even really present for the things that are happening because it's too much. That's when you know, or at least you can look for an underlying depletion, right? So these things, the excess is often a symptom, even though it looks like it's a lot, it's a symptom of an underlying depletion or deficit. And a lot of times it's our own being's way of letting us know that we have a deeper yearning that we're a little afraid to look at. That we're right. That this movement of choosing to warm yourself by the fires of your yearning rather than to smother them with preoccupation is a possible choice in times of excess. To not just stay on the ride, to notice when we're no longer present with things, when it's too much. Life has become static, just a constant amount of static, that we can turn to our yearning and our weariness, both of those things, to bring us in, to bring us home. So forging an alliance with weariness and yearning, and even depletion, right, is a way of saying, like, none of these things are here without your best interest at heart. You don't have to fight anything that's alive inside of you. And if it's weariness, or if it's depression, or if it feels like a deep, kind of like dry emptiness, turning towards that as an alliance is to ask where it's, to know that it has in it, there is your best interest. And a lot of times what these things do, these states that are more associated with the yin field, or a need to repair and restore from the deeper reservoir of life in the yin state, that these things are there to, like, keep us real, to keep us on the pulse of what's actually alive. Because there are so many ways in which we get distracted, or we crystallize around the thought of who we were, or what we wanted, or what's right, or we just get going on something and forget to stop to check in and make sure it's still current and it's still real and it still has heart in it, that we haven't lost that. And that's part of what we're creating as a world right now. Is this real? Does it have substance? Does it have heart? Is it sustainable? And every moment, is that true? And if it isn't, or if it doesn't have those things, are we willing to put it down? And so this very private relationship each one of us has is very much, and cultivating that is very much a part of how we actually become true advocates and true instruments of the answering tide in these times. So, befriending your weariness, befriending your yearning, looking towards the depletion or deficit, being willing to feel that emptiness, but not stop there, right? There's a danger with the yin field that it will stagnate, right? And so we don't want to the movement, and we'll get into that when we're talking about and let it take you to the good place. Like there's movement here. It's not, this isn't something where you give into depletion or you give into the emptiness or the fallow, and that's just what is forever and ever. It can have that feeling, and I think that's why a lot of us resist weariness, and we also resist yearning that comes from um, it comes from a place that wants to be filled or met or touched, is because both of those states have, as part of the state, a sense that they may never end. Right? That's a part of the state. And to remember that's not true, but that is actually a part of what is required in order to surrender fully to weariness, is to feel like I've got nothing. I have to give way completely, even for a moment, even for a second, right? Same way with yearning, to give way completely to like, oh, I can't deny in any way that this is burning inside of me, right? Both of these things guide us towards the hidden sacred, that which is only most true inside of each of us and is so much a part of the private sacred walk that we're each making. So a final note about that is that in depth Taoist perspective or understanding, it is the yin, it is the return through rest, nourishment, and restoration that makes the yang movement true, meaning that all expressions of beauty, everything we express, everything that we reveal from the hidden sacred inside of us, everything that we bring forward is made true by its willingness to return to the hidden sacred, to be nameless again, to be unseen and unexpressed again, to return to its essential nature. So the completion of the full cycle and allowing dormancy, the fallow, allowing weariness to return us again and again to the place of refilling is not a statement of retreat or failure or even a misuse of your own energetic capacity. This is a natural cycle. So we should get weary sometimes because we're fighting the good fight in all the ways that we're doing it, right? And many of us are rising up. We're moving into lives informed by the hidden sacred. And in that, we're the point of an arrow moving through a lot of confusion and disorientation and forgetting in the world. So it's okay. It makes sense to cycle. And this natural cycle is here to make sure that we thrive and that we maintain, that we stay sustained on our golden path, right? To give the fullness of our destiny. So let's talk about overexposure for a minute. Just as excess leads to further depletion, overexposure leads to amnesia, forgetting who you really are. So just as excess leads to depletion and or is a symptom of depletion, overexposure leads to amnesia, forgetting who you really are. Remember the necessity of veiling, protecting your inner world, your body, your power, your tenderness from the gaze, the touch, the aspects of people or culture that cannot see you deeply, that cannot receive you, and who have not yet learned honor. So I'm going to read that again. Remember the necessity of veiling or sheltering the sacred. Just because it's the most holy, eternal thing in the world doesn't mean that sheltering that holy, precious thing is not necessary. Overexposure can both bleed energy out of you, and also there's a cost to overexposure that many of us underestimate and pay hard. Protect your inner world, your body, your power, and your tenderness from the gaze, the touch, the aspects of people or culture that cannot see you deeply, that cannot receive you, who have not yet learned honor. This maybe it's obvious why this is so significant in our current culture, where there's such an emphasis on exposing what you are, what you think, portraiture, right? Posturing, communication, excess of communication, right? Social media, all the everything, right? This is where excess eventually leads, is to overexposure. We are overexposing our own inner resource and we're overexposing ourselves in order to meet all the demands or all the excess that we've either created or surrounded ourselves with or said yes to somehow. And there is a cost to that. And the cost is amnesia, forgetting who you actually really are, what you actually really are, because you've overexposed something that was meant to be held in a certain kind of sacred regard and only brought forward into the gaze, to the touch of people or of entire cultures, right? Of groups of people, of movements that can actually honor you and honor that lives inside of you. That's what it is to steward the holiness inside of you, is to recognize that yes, it's a gift for the world. And yes, it is going to burn in you until you bring it forward. There's no question. This is your offering. This is your destiny. We need you. And to steward that means to follow your weariness when it comes. And when it's not time to give the gift, when it's not time to give anything, when it's time to go into complete surrender and release and listen for what is true to give again and again. And also to steward, to protect that inside of you from that which would not honor it. And by honor, this isn't necessarily a lofty, exalted thing. It's just who that will have reverence for this inside of you. It's not necessarily true that just because it's your truth, just because it's the most precious thing to you, that it needs to be out front all the time. I don't know if you've experienced this before, but there's often a real energetic cost to bringing something holy to you forward and having it either dismantled, invalidated, misunderstood, just not received, right? Not heard. So, part of allowing weariness sometimes is to realize that all of a sudden you don't have the energy you don't have the authentic energy anymore to keep bringing this thing out, to keep fighting, to keep the fight up. And that's actually usually a sign that you're not fighting quite for the right, like you're fighting for something, you're efforting, right? And that it's an invitation into pause. Your weariness always is an invitation into a pause. And if you let it be the ally that it is, you'll consistently realign, right? So that you don't exhaust yourself to the point of collapse. And you don't create things that are going to fall apart, right? Or that you're going to find yourself in later and realize that your heart was actually elsewhere, right? So Just as excess leads to further depletion, overexposure leads to amnesia. And is remembrance is the path in a way inside of each of us, remembering what we already know, what we really are, and remembering to listen to that deeper, hidden, sacred. Cultivate that private relationship. Um, the last part of that teaching that I think is significant and important is that, which I've already mentioned, is that weariness will lead you to the deep well, to the good place. And, you know, in my own life with weariness, especially because I've had some significant collapse experiences, it's really scary. I'm not comfortable there, right? Like, I like it when I feel really alive. And when I feel when I feel like my reservoir is full and I'm not even thinking about it, right? Like when I'm just able to move and go. I don't love the state of weariness. It's not my favorite. And it's scary to me, right? Because if I give into that, how will I have what will happen? And it kind of happens every time, right? So restoring a relationship with weariness, one of the most important things, or restoring a relationship with that pull into surrender and into reorganization and reorientation towards what's really alive, has to do with keeping it inside of the cycle, following your weariness, following that pull towards the fallow, resting there and looking towards what's going to rise up from there. So it's not, there's a surrender, there's a release into it, but inside of it is the seed, always inside of weariness, always inside of the fallow is the spark or the seed of life. And it will rise on its own. But so when we move towards weariness and we say, okay, take me to the good place, right? Please just take me to the good place, whatever. And you'll be, if you let yourself be weary enough or yearning enough, you'll be drawn towards that which feels good, that which actually nourishes you, which actually absorbs into your being, right? So there's a way that it's only by following the sacred need of weariness or the sacred need of yearning that either one of them truly gets met. And to know that inside of each one, inside of all these kinds of things, there's a deep intelligence, a deep knowing. Like if you get out of the way and you just let your weariness lead, she'll take you right to the deep well because there's nothing else that she wants. There's nothing else she's got the energy for. She'll go right to the deep well and she'll lay in it, drink from it, rest by it until she's full again, right? If you follow your yearning, your aching, what is often feels like painful longing for that which is not anywhere around you, maybe sometimes, that you've never even seen, maybe never even experienced yet, if you follow that, it can only go to that place. It will take you there eventually, sometimes immediately. So this is an alchemical, this is a way of living according to natural law. This is a way of engaging with alchemy to trust and follow weariness, to trust and follow the heavier elements of life into the place where the fire is, where the real nourishment is, and to have this kind of inner worship with life where you say like, all right, what I want to do is I want to be on the pulse of you. Life, whatever you are, I don't know what you are. You are a mystery to me. This revelation from inside of me, I'm going to have to stay on the pulse of it. So please keep me close to the pulse of you. Don't let me become some slightly artificial, maybe compelling, but slightly artificial version of myself. Don't let me leave the pulse of what actually wants to live through me. And that's what weariness can do if you befriend it. So I hope that has all been clear. Those are some of the teachings from Dark Mother, the advanced teachings of Dark Mother when we get more into Taoist understandings, some Sufi understandings. I'd love to take a moment just to hear from any of you how that lands, if it feels resonant, if it doesn't, if there's an awareness in you of a sacred need, either a yearning or a draw towards some kind of nourishment that you know you deeply need. Lloyd says tea. I'm going to guess there's more to that, Lloyd. But maybe not. Ron says yes, it does resonate with her. And Radha says it's powerful and profound. And thank you for the deeper understanding of the heaviness. Yeah, it draws down, right? And what's the beauty of that? Going down and in, right? Being drawn down out of dispersion. So part of what weariness and heaviness do is they correct the imbalances of excess yang, excess movement, the dispersion that happens when and you can feel it when you're like out, you're too many places, your energy is dispersed, and you just feel it. Well, for me, it's intolerable, but it's like you can feel your energy is dispersed, right? So heaviness, if you work with it as an ally for you, and you work with it consciously, but you really forge an alliance with it, it will draw you in from that. And it's one of the only things that will. Try to think your way through, try it sometime to think your way through, like sorting out all the dispersive places that you are. It's just adding more to that. The only way to like actually come in from a dispersive state is to consolidate, right? To get heavy, to draw it down. And a lot of times in a more dispersive state, there'll be a natural resistance to that. We have to really like turn toward it, because once dispersion starts to happen, once excess starts to build, it has a way of continuing to build and building on itself, right? And it has a way of like, it needs to actually be drawn back towards the root. There has to be you have to intervene with your own will force, right? It doesn't, otherwise dispersion can go until it just like disperses itself completely and has to build up from nothing. A much more, harmonious, balanced, sustainable, and caring way to be with ourselves is to be in this ebb and flow and this cycling with that spark of our own will force inside of it. Jeannie says it's resonant and close to her own experience. She's thankful for being able to hold it, having words to hold it in a more sacred context. Natalie says, what is Dark Mother? That's a whole other thing, but in a way, it's Dark Mother, it's you could say that's the presence that actually lives in the unknown, that companions you in all that you do not know, in the mystery, right? And in that, it's the comfort and the sheltering of the dark and the unknown, so that and connecting with that presence there is what makes it so that you don't feel like you're just in a void, right? So Dark Mother, in a way, is the companioning presence in all that you do not know and will never understand in the dark, right? Noelle says she loves the concept of fire. Forest fires burn so that certain plant seeds can be sent for and germinated anew. Yep. Ashley says, yep, she's going to go to the float spa now. Deborah says, it's a comfort to be understanding the resistance being the invitation. Yeah, that's beautifully said. The resistance is the invitation. Yeah. Yeah. I'm taking that in for a minute. Thank you. Katrina says, thank you for mentioning the necessity of veiling. It's a big insight for her. Beautiful. Catherine says she's just coming out of a long fallow period and she feels energized now. This helps her realize how much she needed that period after her brother died and to release any guilt about it. Yes. That, yes, beautiful. And it is, I'm grateful to hear that you had that time, right? Because there are things that happen in fallow periods that need to happen, but don't always make themselves, they don't always reveal themselves fully. So I would imagine in an experience like what you're describing, that there's such depth to it, right? To grieve, to release deep guilt, just to go through the full transformation of what that has been for you. It won't, it doesn't, we go into these fallow places. Our weariness draws us down into the dark in a certain way. And in that place, things happen that will kind of always remain veiled, but they happen inside of their own veiling, right? And so then you come back out of it. Working with life in this way, working with weariness and heaviness and all of this in this way, does repair a really important trust in life that's often been broken for many of us, which is that if you really give way to your weariness, if you really give way in a moment when you have nothing left to give, um, or when your yearning is just so complete that you can't fill it with anything, but that what it's yearning for. When you rest in that, even though it can be uncomfortable, and even though you don't necessarily have control at all over when it is that you're going to be refilled, when it is that yearning is going to be met, when it does come, and it does come, when it comes, it is actually then the miracle that it always was. And we end up repairing, kind of walking ourselves through a repair into this deep trust in life, right? That we didn't make that happen. Weariness often brings that. We can't make anything happen if we're weary enough, right? And if we're yearning for something so deeply, like from this place of deep kind of deficit, or just, from yearning, we can't usually make that happen or just have it come and meet us. There's the surrender that happens there can be so complete that we do actually have the actual experience of, wow, like I didn't actually do that. I I couldn't have. That was life's miracle happening. I was so weary. I had nothing. I was so empty. I couldn't even fill myself back up with myself or whatever it is. Then you're left with witnessing yourself be resurrected. This is the same with the descent into the underworld when annihilations happen, right? That, like, if we hold sacred context around it and we watch, we'll see that not only are we out of control of the fact that we encountered this thing, we are going through this journey, but it's actually not really fully in our control when we emerge and how we do. It's grace. So there's something about befriending weariness, even like in small ways, right? That actually brings grace into our lives in a living way. That's not just a thought, like, wow, I really, it's not even just, it's not a prayer from here. It's a prayer from your living prayer. And then it gets answered. And that is the fulfillment of the covenant of creation, right? Joy says, yes, the weariness scares her too when she gets beyond depleted. So she surrenders. Yeah, Gretchen's saying she's experiencing physical pain in her body, perhaps from overwhelm, quite possibly. Christine's saying she's never realized the similarities between yearning and weariness. I didn't actually until this morning, and I was really thinking about it. I can't read all of these. They're beautiful, though. But it seems like Ashley's saying during these times her skin literally feels thinner. Thank you for mentioning veiling and the yin field being part of the natural cycle. Yeah. And, attuning to things like, wow, I just feel so thin, or I feel overexposed, right? Or I have this need to go, whatever, wrap up in bed and just for a minute, like, be completely contained. Like, that's just to say one more time, that's not a retreat. That is a return to the source of power, right? Kind of coming in, wrapping yourself, surrendering, what all of that, veiling, sheltering is always, if we follow the actual impulse of it, is a return to volcanic power, because the yin field, the reservoir at the root of all things, is volcanic. It's not passive. And it is the place from which all life comes. So that's touching that again and again and again is what we actually need to keep going, right? Um, yeah. So let's just have we've got about maybe 10-15 minutes left. Let's have a moment together just to see if we can touch it a little bit together. So if it's safe for you to do so, you can close your eyes, and if not, you can just soften your gaze and bring yourself in, and just breathing for a minute and maybe sinking down underneath of all my words, all the things spoken, just to feel now what's actually alive in you. And let's focus on weariness. So, no matter how you're actually feeling, even if you're not really necessarily feeling weary, see if you can just find somewhere inside of you, some place in life, something, some part of you that is just weary. Or maybe weary it doesn't work for you, maybe just that it feels like it wants to lay to rest somehow. The statement there often is like, I do not have anything to give here. Or if I'm honest, I don't have any energy for this thing, right? Or for this. I'm honest. See if you can just allow that, allow your weariness, give it space. Let it be without any need to change it. Just let it be true. See about letting the story of it, why it is, what you're weary of, all that. See about letting the story relax and release, so you can just feel the essence of your weariness. Is it dark? Is it heavy? Is it dense? Is it not? Just see if you can get a sense of your weariness. It's almost like a living thing in you. And just as if it were a creature, see if you can set it free to find what it needs. Pull back all of your efforts. Find reverence for this and trust. And just ask to be shown. This may come as an image, a color, depending on how your own inner terrain works. You might get an insight about literally something to do in your life. Just open to receive from the sacred need of your weariness. You're listening, you're gathering. And for a few moments, don't think about it. Just breathe in from the deep well, from the good place. Exactly what your weariness needs. Draw life. Your weariness is a prayer, and there is always a response once you offer that up. Don't think about it, don't try, just sip in, breathe in. Open your body, open your being to the response to life, the true response that your weariness calls forth. And now you're filling. You're letting your thirsty places drink and absorb. Taking a few deepening breaths. And when you're ready, open your eyes. I know that was a very brief movement into, actually following your weariness, but if that arrived for you or if you touched anything, this is the part of our service where we just witness together. We witness, bear witness to what arises inside. We bear witness to what we're shown and what is revealed together today in our time. I welcome that. And I think what I kind of want to bring as we're closing together is just this, beyond weariness, beyond yearning. It's just this invitation again and again into sacred need as the as that which will kind of elicit a response from creation, like sacred need. And that in your intimate private relationship with the sacred companionship that's with you, right? Whatever, God, spirit, whatever that is for you, but that um, to really find and claim sacred need as that which can penetrate life and elicit a response, its own response. Joy says when she surrenders into her weariness, she finds deep nourishment and peace. That, whoever was asking, is a lot of the experience of Dark Mother, is the resting into being held, right? That which holds. So there is a deep nourishment in Dark Mother. There's a deep nourishment and a feeling of peace. Yeah, a feeling of intimacy. That's a lot of what Dark Mother is. Madeira says she experienced the weariness of a broken heart that wishes to let go of sorrow. Courtney says it was interesting, she found very opposite visuals of what she normally has. Weariness as light and wispy, something that has lost its color. And what nourished her was thick and dark and muddy. So what's really cool about that is that you're describing yin and yang. So yin, the yang is, true yang is lighter. It lighter, warmer, right? You're describing that as you're describing your weariness. And true yin is thicker, darker, wetter. It has a heaviness to it, a substance to it. And a lot of times weariness comes from a lack of yin, right? Which is why, again, excess lets you know that the actual medicine is this deeper, darker thing, present substance that weariness will lead you to. Yvonne said it felt like she needed to be frozen under snow and air. It's scary to free herself of long, hold it up, hope unfulfilled. Sounds crystalline. I always experience the cold as extremely clarifying, crystalline. It washes clean in a certain way. Lloyd says clarity, stillness, release, these gifts of presence received. Remembrance that resistance takes all the energy from where it's most needed to be felt. Thank you, Lloyd. Yeah, that's right. Resistance takes all the energy from where it's most needed to be felt. Yeah, you saying that makes me remember too that one of the things weariness does is it kind of makes us unable to keep resisting in a certain way, right? Because it redirects energy. I love that. Takes the energy from where it's most needed to be felt. Catherine says, weariness of excess food led her to a yearning for sweet love. Then pink and blue energy filled her body. Yeah, beautiful. That's a great example of noting when empty consumption, right? When you just keep consuming whatever it is. Maybe you keep consuming information, keep consuming media, keep consuming food, keep whatever it is, right? But when it's not actually bringing nourishment, at a certain point, to get honest with yourself, is to feel then what you're actually yearning for. And there's an intensity to touching real yearning, but when we're brave enough to touch it, then it can start to elicit a response from creation. As long as we keep it dormant, as long as we don't lean our own stewardship and we don't lean our own presence behind it, then it doesn't really penetrate the way that it's meant to. It doesn't really elicit the answer that it can. Melinda says, how brilliant the look of love. Mm, beautiful. So befriend your weariness. Let her take you to the good place. Let her lead you. No, follow her to the deep well, to the good place. That's what we've been with today. Are there any final shares or anything that wants to come out before we close together? Radha has gratitude beyond. I'm really grateful to have had this time with you. It's really fun and wonderful to take these different teachings and just go more deeply into them with you all. And I love what all of you are bringing. You know, you're bringing so many other pieces to it. It's like I drop it, I drop it into our field, and then all these things, all these. I'm seeing it like little fish. You know, like dropping a little something into a pond, and all little fish come forward. And Catherine says this has been fantastic. She can't wait to start Queen's Command. Me neither. I'm going to take it myself this year. Francesca said she found an apology that she needs to give. And her weariness has been because she's been holding up a story. That's beautiful. That feels like it moves with what Lloyd was saying in terms of like, it takes a lot to be in resistance to what we really need to feel or where the energy really needs to go. It also takes a lot to hold up portraits of ourselves or to hold up things that are ultimately not authentic to us. And you know, there's the humble walk right there, but it's like, oh, wow, I thought that was so cool before. I was so passionate and so into that thing before, and like now it's just feeling empty. Can we be brave enough? Or I felt so right about that. I thought I really thought I was like right on it, and I was right in my integrity and all these things. And like, oh wow, now when I'm honest, that's not true. You know, in a way, weariness there's an authenticity that it holds for us. It's like I said, yin is both yin and yang make each other true, and in a way, yin is this thing of coming back in, and this movement is what consistently makes things true. Things that we say, the things that we've created, consistently makes them more and more true. Audrey says she's feeling deep clarity around holding space for herself in ways that she never received as a child. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the guide to her own wisdom and love. Beautiful. Catherine says, wow, weariness of righteousness, something to contemplate at this time. It sure is. Some things are just hard to hold up beyond a spark because they don't have root. Right? And there's no, a lot of what this can do for us, you know, a lot of the invitation to come into alignment with natural law, with these bigger movements like fruition to follow, all these things is that we don't have to relate to things so much as just like the story or what's people saying or all the things. It's like, well, what's the bigger holding of all this? What do we really want to be aligned with? Whatever we're doing, whatever we're creating. Anyway, we're at time, so let's just have a moment of prayer and kind of coming in together as we close. Just taking a moment to seal up and just fill a little more deeply. You don't have to hold on to anything that we just went through or spoke or any of the words. Check in for a minute and feel, notice what was given. What did you reveal unto yourself? Really soften into that. Make some space for it. Receive. Blessed Holy Ones, companion, I feel how much our hearts have to give. And I feel how much we yearn for what's true. I ask you to come behind each one of us, to uphold each one of us, to shelter us when that time is here and it's time to shelter. Stand right behind and beside us when we rise, when that time is here. Help us to trust ever more deeply the way that you move through us, the way that life moves. Real life. Help us to love one another with wisdom. From an ever more true place. Help us to inspire one another towards the good. Blessed be. Blessed be. Blessed be. Really wonderful to have time with you all this morning. And yeah, I hope your day is amazing, or your night, or whatever's in front of you. And I hope that, yeah, well, I wish you all good things. Well, I have one more. There's one more of these Sunday services in the series next Sunday. And I'll send out the recording of this and also the invitation, to the next one. And yeah, thank you all for being here. And her mystery school starts on the 17th of September. So we have about a week and a half. If you are feeling it, if you're drawn, if you have any questions, you can go to the website. You can contact us at support@hermysteryschool.com. We're going into our 5th year. We're feeling strong. It's time for a lot of things, right? Yeah. Thank you all so much. I trust your weariness very much. Okay, blessed be.